Welcome to Knicks Home Court with your host. My name is Greg Armstrong. This is Knicks Home Court, episode number 17. I think this is the perspective episode. Don't Panic, part 1, or part 2, actually. Look, before I get into analyzing the last two games, as I said I would, I just want to say, Knicks fans, what did you expect in the very beginning of the season? What did you expect with all of the new players that the Knicks have? What record did you expect after 4 games? Only 4 games, I might say, or I have to say. You know, the hot takes fly when it comes to the Knicks. With teams that are basically better or well-known, there'll be excuses made for those teams, but no excuses made for a team that basically has a brand new team and players who have to learn how to play together. These are reasons. Knicks have legitimate reasons why they're not doing well. I have some issues. However, it's 4 games into the season. There are some good things and there's some bad things. I, for one, am not deterred at all. Now, I want to get on to the games. I had said the Knicks were going to win the last 2 games, and I must admit, I thought the Knicks could win the Detroit game. That was a winnable game. And the Houston game, I knew it would be difficult. And to be honest, I kind of went with my Knicks fandom on that one. It was very difficult. I was, how can I say, I was kind of rooting on that game. I really thought the Knicks would win the Detroit game because, again, like I said, if they would have scored over 100, they could have won that game. It was 102-89. The Knicks just stopped scoring at some point. They just stopped scoring. But let's get into that game. I'm going to analyze a little bit of Knicks and Detroit Pistons game. The Knicks lost that game in the first half. A lot of people don't understand you can lose a lot of games in the first half. If you come out here and you're lackluster, the team has a 20-point lead or 15-point lead, and you lose by 9, 10, 11 points, a lot of times you can point to that first half. You got to try to win the quarters. And when you start off bad and you're playing catch up in the beginning, it's a very difficult thing to do against NBA teams. It really is. Unless you have a lot of firepower, which the Knicks do have. What they don't have is a team that makes stops when they need it. If you look at the Knicks' only victory of the season against the Memphis Grizzlies, they really won that game in the first half. And basically after that, the Memphis Grizzlies were trying to catch up the whole game. It's very difficult to do on the NBA level. But my biggest problem with the Knicks right now, first of all, they lost that game to Detroit, but I must say, the Morris twin, he was giving it to Melo. Let's be real. Dude had a great game. I mean, he was hitting contested shots and he was just busting Melo's ass. Let's be real. Melo had a good game at the end, but he was giving it to Melo. You know, I mean, they had some hot shooting that I thought was going to cool off. That actually did cool off, but the Knicks cooled off even more. So, you know, that game there, it didn't make me angry. And by the way, I wanted to say, are Knicks fans really upset that they're 1-3? Or they're upset that they got blown out against Houston? Let's see. If that game would have been a 2-point loss, 4-point loss, and Detroit game would have been a 4-point loss, would people have been this angry? I don't think so. Honestly, I think the blowout is good for the Knicks. It makes them reflect. It makes them look at themselves and come back and have some professional pride, especially pride in your defense. You know, people got to understand, you have a new coach trying to teach new players a new system that the coach is also learning. Yeah, he says, he said all of the nice things. It's a system of spacing, but he's trying to incorporate all of these things where a lot of teams can just focus on defensive principles and things like that. So it's going to take time naturally. And sometimes you're going to lose games because of that. And then you have these tough games. I mean, let's see. They played Cleveland and the champions. Memphis. I think Memphis may have missed the playoffs last year, but still a very good team with Marc Gasol. They won that game. They played Detroit, who also was in the playoffs, and they played Houston, who was also in the playoffs. They've been playing nothing but good teams so far. They haven't had gimme games where they can work on their, win games while working on getting to know each other. It's not an easy thing to do when you're playing against teams that have been together. But I think one of the biggest problems with the Knicks right now is basically their team defense. The lack of communication on defense. I'm not seeing it. There are times where three-point shooters against Detroit were left so wide open. Even towards the end of the game, Caldwell Pope was left wide open for a three. I mean, he was able to set his feet, read a newspaper and then take a shot. Completely ridiculous to allow that to happen. There's times that I gotta say, Kristaps Porzingis has looked terrible on defense. He has looked lost at times. Carmelo Anthony has looked lost at times. I've seen defensive pick and rolls where Knicks players are bumping into each other. I mean, I've never seen such a disjointed defense. The Knicks defense has got to be the worst in the NBA. So I'm not thinking about the triangle and the offense and things like that, And then I hear a lot of people say, well, if you don't like the offense and you want to run, you got to buckle down on defense. I don't think the Knicks team defense is bad, but it's not completely, you can't completely contribute that can't be just lack of effort. It's also lack of knowing your teammates, knowing where players are going to be. You have to think that's exactly a big problem there. Lack of knowing your teammates, where they're going to be, who has what role. Because people don't understand, individual defense in the NBA is not, it's great to have like individual defensive players. It's great to have that. But the truth is, team defense is what really wins. You're going to tell me J.R. Smith is now all of a sudden a great defensive player? You're going to tell me Kyrie Irving is a good defensive player? He's not even a good defensive player. But they play on a string. You're going to tell me Kevin Love? They have a starting five with Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and J.R. Smith. Three probably minus defenders with Tristan Thompson and LeBron James. Two really good defenders. But what they have is great team defense. And that's what you need in the NBA. You need great team defense. You cannot be out of place. You got to call pick when people are being picked. Even another thing, I feel like the chemistry is just really not there. There's times Melo has the ball, he's dribbling up the court, and a player comes behind him and steals it. None of the Knicks players are yelling out to him. I know, whatever, watch your back, whatever you need to say in the background. The Knicks are lacking that kind of chemistry. And I'm going to tell you, teams that succeed aren't afraid to get in each other's face. And right now, I think that team chemistry, people don't realize team chemistry is not just about getting along. Team chemistry is about being comfortable enough to get in your teammate's face and tell them, you're fucking up. Get on your man. Stop leaving a three-point shooter open. Really, really getting in your teams. If you look at the best teams in the league, Unless they just have an overwhelming amount of talent, like Golden State has an overwhelming amount of talent, but they still have dogs on that team. Draymond Green, I'm sure in the huddles and I'm sure in practice, he's telling them like, "Come on, man, come on now." Same thing with LeBron James. He gets in his teammates' face. That's important. That is very important. And I don't see that with the Knicks. I see Joakim Noah, but now you got people like a person like Joakim Noah who can probably do that. But he doesn't want to step on Melo's toes. You know that. So he's trying to figure it out, So all of that traveling and hanging out in Puerto Rico and doing all that practice and all that shit, that's not team chemistry. That's part of it. But people got to understand something about team chemistry. It's like your friend. Your true friend is the one who can tell you when you're fucking up, when you're not doing right, that's the person that keeps you grounded, that keeps you on point, and that's the kind of chemistry the Knicks need to develop. And right now, it's going to take a while for that. They have to get angry at each other and feel uneasy sometimes. That's going to have to happen. The coach too. The coach has to be comfortable. If you look at Greg Popovich, he loves his players, but he'll jump in their face in 1 second because he's comfortable like that. It's not easy to do those kind of things because you don't want to lose a player, because we know a lot of these players are pampered. Has there ever been a coach to get in Carmelo's face? Has there ever been a coach? Has Kristaps ever been told, yelled at? I mean, missing assignments and playing the way they're playing, I don't know how I couldn't be that kind of. I'll be all up in their face. I would have to be, because it's just preposterous. It's not like you made little mistakes. Knicks are making huge mistakes on defense. Literally, people are walking to the rim. There's no contest. Nobody's contesting things. There's no physicality when it comes to the Knicks. But on offense, they have all this energy. So offense is not their problem. So I don't want to hear about triangle. I don't want to hear about that. Their problem is on the defensive side of the ball. I'm seeing a lack of team communication and things like that. That's why they lost that game. And that's why they lost the Houston game. And I'm going to get into the Houston game in a minute with James Flop and Harden. I'm going to get into that in a minute. So when they played against Detroit, I feel like Drummond didn't dominate that game. Morris hit a lot of great clutch shots in Melo's face, and things like that. But the last 5 minutes of the game, the Knicks didn't score. How do you have Derrick Rose, Carmelo Anthony, and even though Kristaps, he kept him out a little too long, again, the coach is still learning his team. How do you have that team, those players, and don't score in the last 5 minutes of a game? It's not like Detroit is a defensive juggernaut. Come on, man. Anyway, let me move on to the Houston game. Another game that I said the Knicks would win. And to be honest with you, like I said, I was being a Knicks fan. I knew this would be a difficult game. They have blew the Knicks out in the preseason, and I know it's just the preseason, but it's the style of play that the Knicks don't defend the three. So when they play against teams that like to shoot the three, they're going to struggle. Like, I think the Knicks play teams like Milwaukee, who doesn't shoot the three very well. They're going to play Chicago tonight, who also is not really known as a three-point shooting team, or they don't really have three-point shooting players. Those games are more suited for the Knicks. Even Memphis Grizzlies are not a team that really shoots threes like that. So, I think the Knicks will do better against those teams. But most of the teams in the league shoot threes. So they better learn how to start defending those threes. Now, the Houston Rockets. James Harden. I think that, it's just going to be difficult to stop him at that point guard position. First of all, he's always played point guard. He's always had the ball. There's nothing really different about that. But I think that teams are going to have to attack James Harden. And I think the Knicks wasn't able to do that enough. I don't really feel like the Knicks had a real game plan going against them. I mean, Hornacek said they did in scouting reports, and team players didn't read them. And my thing is, Hornacek, be careful being so honest with the media about the Knicks conditioning, because he said the Knicks don't seem like they're in great condition. The Knicks, what's the other thing he said? They're not reading the scouting reports. Well, okay, the conditioning, hopefully that shall improve. Not reading the scouting report. Okay, so what are you going to do behind that? Are you going to bench somebody? What are you going to do behind that? See, certain things I realize you shouldn't even mention to the press, because you don't have a punishment. You're not even going to do nothing about that. So why put that out there? You trying to embarrass the players? I mean, some coaches do it that way. I don't see the purpose in letting that be known. To me, you do that like basically after you try to get on the players in the locker room first. And you let them know, listen, y'all got to read these scouting reports. But a lot of players are not doing that. They're not doing that. Maybe you need to go over the scouting report with them extensively. I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. I could not tell you how that situation goes down. So, against Houston, I'm going to tell you what was disheartening. Houston's lead got bigger when James Harden went to the bench. James Harden did not really dominate this game. The Knicks got dominated by all the other players. James Harden went to the bench, and that second unit just ransacked the Knicks, going into the paint, scoring all over them. Again, miscommunications on defense. And this is my thing. I don't mind him going with the second unit. I think that, first of all, I think that Jeff Hornacek got a little too cute with the rotations. I think that when you can win a game, you try to win a game. You worry about, everybody gets on Tom Thibodeau, and I do too. I think he's in the past played his players too long. But I think that game against Detroit, you go for the win. You worry about Houston tomorrow. Sometimes you got to make a calculated decision like, listen, we're going to lose that game against Houston. It's not a good matchup. Let me win this game against Detroit. Let me go 1-1 on this back-to-back. Sometimes you got to just take it that way. He chose to sit guys long against Detroit, sit guys against Houston, and it just was a bad, because I'll tell you one thing. The Knicks starting unit does okay against other teams. But this is where the Knicks have a problem. With the injury history of the players in the starting unit, you can't play them too much. And the Knicks are not staggering their lineup. Again, I believe that he's trying to give his younger players and the other rotation, he's trying to give them confidence. But right now, Lance Thomas is not giving us nothing. Brandon Jennings is starting to wake up. He's starting to play better. And we need these players to be able to score off the bench, because if we bring in the bench guys and they're not scoring and they're not playing D, Knicks are going to lose these games. Then you bring Porzingis back in the game, and Kristaps Porzingis, I must say this. Dude, you got to start demanding the ball, man. Knicks have to do a better job of getting him the ball, and he has to start demanding the ball. Especially when you in there with the second unit, Kristaps. Come on. When you in there with the second unit, come on, man. They got to give you that ball. And I know he's young. He's a young player. He needs to learn that. But with that second unit, you need to be the alpha male on that court. You don't need to be running up and down the court doing wind sprints and not getting the ball. You need to be the first option when you playing with that second unit, without a doubt. With the first unit, okay, I can understand. But right now, if Kristaps is going to play tentatively, and I don't need him out there shooting 7 threes a game. 3 is not working for you. Get down. You have mismatches, and he's deadly mid-range shooter, and nobody can block his shot. Only one problem I have with Kristaps is he does a lot of faking. He plays small. He's 7'3". He doesn't play 7'3". This is not football where you taking a pounding. All he needs to do is turn around, create space, and rise up and shoot over people. Dirk Nowitzki made a career out of that. I'm just going to shoot over you. Not going to do a crossover. I'm just going to shoot over you. I'm going to fade away a little bit and shoot over you, and you can't stop it. And Kristaps can do that. but he does it sometimes. And I like all the moves he has, but sometimes just turn around, create space with the when like Melo extends his leg sometimes to create space, pull a leg back and shoot a jumper right in their neck. They're not blocking your shot. I don't think Kristaps has had his shot blocked yet. So I want to see going forward, I want to see a more aggressive Kristaps Porzingis. I want to see the Knicks aggressively look for him, no matter who's on the floor. Look and see if he has mismatches and get him the ball, period. I want to see them do better at three. I don't understand, and this is an epidemic in the NBA. I notice NBA players are terrible at guarding the three-point line. I've watched so many different games this season already where the ball will be on the opposite side of the court. The player on the other side of the court, he's not even in the play, and he's not guarding the three-point line. And somehow the ball swings back over to his man, or there's a penetration. You see this all the time. There's a penetration, and they throw it right across to where his man is, and there goes an open three. I've seen it happen time and time again. I don't understand how these players don't get it. All these teams want to do is penetrate and dish. Just about most of these teams. That lets me know that Knicks aren't the only teams reading the scouting reports. Okay, so now I'm going to... that's all I had to say about the Houston game. There's really nothing to analyze. I mean, they got crushed. Plain and simple, they got crushed. It wasn't a close game. There's nothing to talk about. The Knicks played terrible defense. Maybe they can tighten that up, but that's how Houston wants to play. I think Derrick Rose looked good. I think he's looking better and better. I think that Melo looked okay. And at this rate, the way I'm feeling, I'm thinking the Knicks need to just take, maybe Derrick Rose needs to shoot more. He's been lights out going to the rack. But Derrick Rose also, too, needs to learn how to play through contact. In other words, he needs to get to the foul line more. For a guy who penetrates a lot, he sure doesn't get to the foul line at all, really. He doesn't get foul calls. And Melo either. And I know they haven't mastered the art of flopping. People wonder why LeBron James, one of the strongest players in the NBA, flops so much. It's because officials make a lot of calls from peripheral vision. Like if something looks like a foul, they call a foul. That's what it looks like. A lot of times they don't, when I've been watching the NBA for a long time, and a lot of times if you're shooting in the paint, most of your shots, you get to the free throw line just because you're going into the paint, just because the refs knew that there was going to be some contact. I've seen obvious contact in the paint and it not being called because players are not flopping. So if they want flopping to stop, you have to call fouls off of contact and not off of a reaction of a player. And James Harden has mastered the art of a flop. He makes everything look difficult. When he goes up for a shot and the player rubs against him, he will fall away. He has mastered that. LeBron is another master of that. Carmelo, not so much. Carmelo goes up strong. He's trying to score the ball through the contact. See, years ago, you got punished for trying to make contact and fall away. They wouldn't call that foul. But now they do. So players, they have to adjust to that. I don't think that's really going to happen. That's just me hoping, but we'll see. So now I want to talk about the Chicago game tonight. I think this is a game now I'm going to attempt to analyze, and I think this is a decent matchup for the Knicks. Chicago, again, they have players who are not known as three-point shooters. They have been shooting well from three, but they're not three-point shooting team. And the Knicks have good interior defense. So that's why a lot of teams, I realize, are not going all the way to the rack on the Knicks. What they're doing is they're operating in the mid-range area against the Knicks. Like if the Knicks chase them off the three-point line, they're shooting their threes. They're shooting in the mid-range area. They're not continuing all the way to Kristaps. And Kristaps, you need to learn that you don't need to block every shot. You just need to be a threat. Because I realize he's trying to do too much sometimes. So I think this is a decent matchup for the Knicks. I think the Knicks are going to play hard. I really can't call it, though. Because Dwayne Wade is the type of player that, you don't know what may happen with him. He can go off. I just don't know. I have to respect that. But I have to think. I hope the Knicks come away with a win. But I think this is a good matchup for the Knicks here. I think it's a similar team. And another thing too, I would like to see the Knicks take more threes. And I'm gonna say this, and I've been saying this, and I realize the media hasn't said it. Everybody complains about the triangle. That's not my complaint. I actually think the triangle's a good offense. What my complaint is the fact that Phil Jackson, and I said this before and I'm gonna keep saying it, the president of the team is telling them how to run a system, or telling them to run a specific system. I don't see that happening with Greg Popovich. Of course it wouldn't. I don't see that happening. Like, that is ridiculous. To hire a coach, your bottom line for that coach should be win. You better win those games or you'll get fired. But it seems like he's more interested in winning with his triangle. And dude, I would get that if you were the coach, but you're not the coach. And I see that he's kind of I think Hornacek looks like he has enough chutzpah or balls to do his thing. I hope. Now, I'm not saying that I don't want them to play the triangle. I'm saying I want Hornacek to coach the way he wants to coach, period. You got Courtney Lee saying we're practicing defense against the triangle. And when we play against teams, they're playing pick and roll. Come on. Because you got to understand, these veterans don't want to be embarrassed like this. I'm up here trying to learn a system and all this bullshit while teams are running up and down scoring. So anyway, I just wanted to, like I said, I will have another podcast coming this weekend. This is just, like I said, I like to analyze the games. It was a back-to-back. I couldn't do the game. I couldn't do it right after the game. I wanted to see the next game. I will not be doing the podcast after tonight's game. I will be doing the podcast Sunday. Either I put up Sunday or Monday. But it's been real, folks. I just wanted to chime in with my opinions. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to read the Twitter comments. I'm going to start reading Twitter comments. I think I'm going to start doing a little Twitter panic segment. I'm not sure, but I just found a few Twitter comments to be funny. One person says, I think instead of Melo posting self-reflecting Instagram posts, he should be chatting with the coaching staff and Noah regarding our defense. That's probably one of the dumbest posts I've ever seen. That's assuming a whole lot. That's assuming that that these guys are not talking, they're not communicating, not trying to come up with a plan. It's just ridiculous when people say that. I need to say, instead of you posting tweets, how about you getting ready for work if you're not at work? Or if you are at work, how about it's just ridiculous when people say dumbass shit like that. Unbelievable. Another fan had said, that was just one tweet. I'm not going to read anymore, but I do remember seeing a tweet where another person said that they were thinking about rooting for another team based off the 4 games. Look, yeah, Knicks fans, look, I'm a Knicks fan, but I'm not a scorned Knicks fan. In other words, expectations. It's an 82-game season. If the Knicks lose, they lose. I want them to win, but I don't sit up here and I don't get too emotional, not so early. Yeah, I get mad and I see stupid things and I get upset like the rest of the fans. But at the end of the day, it's 4 games into the season, people. Relax. I don't know. What did you expect? 4-0? Just relax, people. If Derrick Rose is healthy and continues to play well, if Melo is healthy, if Noah's healthy, if everybody's healthy, this team will be a playoff team and a very good team by the end of the year. The end of the year, you're going to look back and say, wow, this team is decent. So let's just wait and see. And look for signs of improvement, because that's what we got to do right now. Instead of the sky is falling. Anyway, that's been this episode of Knicks Home Court, episode number 17. I am your host. My name is Greg Armstrong. Music on this podcast is brought to you by bensound.com. You can find this podcast also on lifeculturesports.com/Knicks Home Court. You can also find it on iTunes under Life Culture Sports, no spaces. You can go to my YouTube page and look for Knicks Home Court. It'll also be there. And also you can go to SoundCloud and look under Life Culture Sports, and you'll find it there. Let's enjoy this game tonight. Let's hope the Knicks come away with a win. I think this is a decent matchup for the Knicks. I think they can come away with a win. But I'm going to stay out of the prediction business right now until I get a hold on the kind of team the Knicks are right now. All right? And that's it for the day, and I'll speak to y'all later. Peace.